There we go. We are set. Friends and folks, we are live. A lot of things happened this past week. Bill Clinton became a rabbi. Chris Judge is probably still talking. Al Pacino learns what video games are, and Animal got some level of gamer cred to his name. Of course, we are talking about the Game Awards. Friends and folks, welcome to Kaiju Lounge. I'm your boss monster, Noah Waterman, and I'm here with my partner in crime, the man who keeps me in check, Michael Petrocelli. Michael, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Okay, had to double
You
check,
just
make sure this
you
thing
just
was
had to
live.
you had to lead with the Bill Clinton thing right
I
off the
mean,
top.
honestly, as much as that angered me, the joke of Bill Clinton being a rabbi is too good. Uh, but
I
yeah, no, fucking awful shit.
yeah, my
Anti-Semitism real,
notes
and it sucks to
my
see.
notes distinctly end. I have a bunch of notes listed here, and I started to fade out a little bit as the evening went because I had a couple nights in a row where I didn't sleep well. But then yeah, my last two my last two notes are like, what the fuck was that? So we'll
well,
get to it.
well, yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to all of it, guys. We were going to initially do a live watch along and react to the Game Awards. It was going to be a fun thing to do. We hadn't done anything like this yet, and of course, my day job got crazy busy, and I was in LA not for this. Shockingly. So instead, we decided to take some time to ruminate on it, i.e., I needed to find the time to watch it. So then we can now talk about today. Um, and it was pretty crazy. I like to think this was, and I've not. Troy, did you watch a lot of the Game Awards before this one? Because I've
I
typically missed them and then gone back and just watched the trailers.
I used to never watch, and then I think starting in around 2019 or so, I decided to just tune in because I was like, kind of passively just like on my phone or whatever, but just to see it and see kind of how much, I have a faint memory of it being some like Spike TV thing back in the day,
Right,
but
right.
now it's they're trying to make it a full blown award show, the Oscars of the video game industry, and I have a lot of thoughts in terms of how successful that is, but it's interesting to watch. It's I do have a certain level of respect for Jeff Keighley in terms of kind of like
Oh,
putting this thing on his back, and
100%.
whatever you think about him, like it's clear he cares about this shit, and he is and he has really given it 110% every time, and so I think he deserves some respect for that.
Yeah, I think let's parlay this into the big picture of the Game Awards. First off, in Jeff Keighley's supposed intent and how this thing is kind of set up. Because I agree, there is no question that Jeff Keighley loves games, and he is, I think, probably doing the best job of bringing a level of prestige to gaming, a level of, I don't know, correction, level of mainstream prestige, right? One could argue that Andy Warhol gave prestige to art, but was never mainstream, and that was kind of the point. Jeff Keighley is trying to give a level of mainstream gravitas to the games industry, and I think that's great. Um, I don't think the execution quite matches.
Well, it's interesting because for one thing, I can't think of another art form that's attempting to put on some sort of recognition showcase like this that is kind of working in the opposite direction towards respectability. Like things like cinema and and I guess television is with peak TV kind of became more respectable, but always at least had some level of understanding behind it. Games were initially just a fad, and then a thing that's ruining your children until those same adults were ruined by social media, and then you know now you find there's been debates over the past 15 or so years over whether games could be considered art or not, but it's kind of like reaching up to like get to some kind of respectable thing instead of kind of starting with that at least some level of buy-in from the general public, and I think that's so there's kind of, I guess my point is that it's hard to get away from like a sense of almost like kind of sweatiness around like the desire to like be an adult, to be like, this is an award show where, we've got the red carpet and everything. And instead is just, it's kind of just Summer Games Fest Part 2, but
Right.
Winter Games Fest. But yeah,
I
I
mean
don't know.
that no, I
There's a
think
lot of things working against it.
yes. So that's an interesting question. Do you think an award show of this caliber is deserved for the game industry, but do you think it's been earned yet? Do you think that as a whole has the industry done the work to earn that level? I reckon all those of us who are fans are fans. But is it almost trying too hard?
I think the issue is it's it's trying to be two things that don't work together. It's trying to be an award
Yes.
show, and it's trying to be like an
A
E3
keynote
esque,
showcase.
yeah, an keynote showcase, E3 esque kind of hype machine, like, yeah, we know what gamers like type thing. Because, and I think they're too afraid to just do the first thing because they're worried that people won't watch,
Hmm.
and that people, and they need the announcements, they need those advertisements to come in and make sure that people get the streaming numbers in so they can justify continuing to put on the show for like their sponsors and stuff like that. Like, they're kind of trapped between a rock and a hard place in that regard.
Which I found aggravating. 'Cause I really want it to be an award show. Like I
Yeah,
love getting the trailers, and there are some things in here I did get super hype over, but like I don't know that it'd be like showing all these. It's tough, right? Because it'd be like showing the new Marvel trailer during the Oscars or something for people to start freaking out over.
yeah,
The truth
right.
is, those Marvel movies would never win Oscars, but their equivalents in the gaming world win game awards, right?
Right,
Because
because that's essentially, outside of like indies that are kind of achieving, real dramatic resonance, but maybe at the expense of gameplay, like that type of big blockbuster is kind of the AAA holy grail, so to speak, at least
which
right now.
and I think that's one of my gripes with this is that I think there needs to be a larger variety of award types, a larger variety of games because I feel like every year it's kind of the same couple of games, and it feels very lowest common denominator. I think that I remember reading something about why a lot of the Oscar movies are always good, but they're never truly great. It's because it's a ranked kind of voting system,
Mm,
and everyone's number one and number two choice for best movies are wildly different because that's subjective. But everyone's like
right.
three and four are about the same. So when you got a bunch of threes versus a bunch of ones and a bunch of fives, the
That's
threes tend to
how
rise above, right?
that's how Green Book wins Best Picture. Threes.
Yes, exactly. And I think there's some of that here. I also
Yeah.
think people are paying for their spot. I'm not unconvinced people are paying for this spot because not only now, granted, God of War is a tough one because I God of War is good. We all knew it was going to be good,
Sure.
but of course, the actual voting and everything that came out for it, like the game, it was released maybe half a week before the nominations come through. So I get
Mm,
that the industry that gets to vote on this has probably had in their hands for a while, but it's like the game, like it'd be like if Titanic came out right before the Oscars aired and then started winning shit.
right.
Like it
Whereas
feels a
normally
little, it
there's
feels
a
a
cutoff
little
point.
like gone. And then my other point was going to be fucking Diablo Immortal. Did I know it's made Blizzard a shit ton of money, but like no one liked this game. People were
Right.
pissed off when this thing released because it was the game that Ted Cruz said he loved because he could buy his way to victory.
Yep.
Like,
And if he likes anything, that's a red flag. But
I
yes.
mean,
Yeah, I literally have in my third line of notes, it's an award show where the awards are secondary to the ads, because that's what
yes,
it is.
yes.
The other thing I have here is that I just have to mention is, imagine if the previous year's Best Picture winner advertised merchandise at the next year's Oscars, because that's what It Takes Two did. There was like an ad for like It Takes Two merchandise, and I was like, imagine Like
Right.
what was the best picture winner last year? I'm blanking right now, but like,
I follow the Game
but
Awards much more closely than I follow the Oscars.
imagine if the Oscars took a break in the middle for like, yeah, for like, I'm gonna say Green Book again because that's what I remember, but imagine that like they were hawking like Green Book T-shirts or like little little models of the car with the two of them in it, or
Yeah,
something like that. Like that would be insane. That would be an insane thing to do, and yet that the Game Awards does that because it's mostly a vehicle for advertising, and then a little bit of awards sprinkled in.
for sure. We got Dancing Mike in the chat. Hi, Dancing Mike.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
And I think that's tough because on one hand, I don't want to admit that, but you're probably right. That is the case. The trailers do bring people in, and comparing it to and the Steam Deck giveaways, which I'm sure enticed a lot of people to watch.
If I didn't have one already, I would have been trying to get it.
For sure, for sure. But like, I don't know. Hey, buddy. I feel like part of me is like, yeah, I probably want. I would like to think I'd still watch if it wasn't for the trailers. I feel like if there was a little, it would need more substance than just awards. Because here's the honest truth: is that like unless you had more celebrity appearances, you're right. Like most of the people and even the top name developers and publisher personalities, like Reggie Fils-Aimé or something, uh, their charisma pales in comparison to Al Pacino when he does know what he's talking about. And so with that, it's not like them goofing around isn't the same. Some of the best moments of the award show part, I'll say I thought the animal bit was amazing. I thought that was very well done.
It was all right. It was a little cringy for me, but it's okay.
But I'd say that like, what could you do instead of trailers? Or maybe do you lessen it? Do you swap it around a little bit? More developer interviews. Can we encourage people to red carpet this so we can get a better look at Chris Judge's fucking sparkly outfit? Like, there's got to be something. There's got to be more to it to make this feel more like an award show. Because I will say, to say it took second, it didn't take second place. It took like 8th place. The awards itself, and more than 50% of the awards were just done through a graphic, and the winner
they got through them really quickly and like
really
felt
fast.
Like they were in a hurry. Yeah,
I feel like we saw 6 acceptance speeches tops. Like,
right,
it's insane.
Well, maybe if Chris Judge there hadn't taken up so much time with his speech, then
the highs and lows of that moment of me being like, I can't wait for him to be done, and please don't ever stop. Then I can't wait to be done. Then they started playing the music, and it just sounded epic in his greatest voice.
I think this is supposed to be send-off music, but it just sounds like a backing track.
You've just made it more memorable and motivational, and now I don't want this to end.
Yeah. I don't like. We have to. I want to kind of go through the night a little bit, to really kind of get my. I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. Do we want to talk about anything that won outside of like Game of the Year and stuff like that?
Oh, I want to go.
Any thoughts about the winners?
I think we'll blast through some. We'll blast through all of them as fast as the Game Awards show did. But we'll talk about the ones that stand up. I think Troy, you beat Dancing Mike to a joke, so he's feeling bad about that.
I had the advantage of not having to type it. But yes.
So let's go ahead. I did bring up I think I have all the winners here right now, and I had to scroll to the bottom because, of course, they show that first. Let's start with these ones that don't really matter much. We'll shout out ones that
were these ones from the pre-show.
Yeah, most of the ones from the pre-show. However,
I was thinking, I was like, they're doing a lot of awards in the pre-show. That was my first thought watching it.
Well, let's before we get into the awards, that's a good point. Why the fuck do we have a pre-show if it's just the show, but Jeff Keighley's back is to the audience? If that's the only difference,
it was just Jeff Keighley's opening act, and like I forget her name, but
Sydney Goodman.
Sydney Goodman, like. She was trying. She was out there, trying.
I really like Sydney Goodman. I was always a fan of her work at IGN. I thought she was great. I thought she was given the raw end of the deal here. I think the fact that someone did not tell her, to like that she should or shouldn't read those things, or like it wasn't fully explained, because she just said, and the nominees are pause. and the winner is, and it's like I remember the first two times this thing like, did
She
she
was
have
like,
a stroke? Did I
"It's
have a
on the
stroke?
screen." Yeah,
I thought
it was
that
on the
I thought
screen. You didn't need her to say it.
I also think that like I know how talented she is. I thought whoever was writing her jokes was awful.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
terrible.
just
But
like
again, in the grand tradition of the Game Awards, really sweaty stuff in terms of like the attempts at humor. A lot of flop sweat going on.
all right,
But like the last thing I want to say before we dive into specifics is just about the idea of doing a Game Awards show. Is there are so many, and maybe it's an inherently flawed premise, but there are so many interesting ways to kind of like show how games are exciting, like in terms of like what you can make, what kind of stories you can tell, like all this stuff. That's what bummed me out the most about them breezing through so many of these, because I was just like, like if you're nominating something for like best sound design or whatever, like show me what's cool about that.
yes,
Show me what's interesting, or like if you're gonna do like a best fight, they did best fighting game in the pre-show, and like show me first of all, multiverse is bullshit that game won, but like
I'm not. We'll go to it. I'm not because I'm not surprised, but I've also talked that Sifu was in it, but yeah, that's. But you're
that
right.
is also Sifu is not a fighting game, but yeah, it's. But like, show me the game. Show me at least the later nominees like showed you some clips, but like exemplify why is this exciting. Like show some like for fighting games, show some pro level play. Like show how like how dynamic it is and how
Yeah.
like how interesting.
I
Same
would
with
say
like any of that
if you
stuff.
can't, it's like talk to the people you talk to and ask them why they nominated these games, right? Like that would be interesting.
Right,
Uh,
right. Maybe give some kind of interest, like because I feel like everyone who wasn't like a Chris Judge type just kind of gave like a canned version of like the same speech for the most part.
yeah,
And it's just like, yeah, maybe like give them some kind of interesting angle. I don't
right.
know.
I get that. Like again, these aren't the most. They're you can't do this the way you would do the Oscars because, but I don't think that just slamming it with trailers and then trying to hide awards between them is necessarily the way to go if we are truly going to look at this as a major award show. And that's definitely the idea. Because right now, as a trailer showcase, it's just far too fucking long.
Right, that's the problem. Is but like if I'm watching like an E3 press conference, it's usually 40 minutes tops,
Right.
and then we're at 40 minutes to an hour maybe if there's some padding, and then
Yeah.
we're out of there. It's not like a 2.5 3 hour show with all this stuff in the middle, and and again, musical performances, a thing that was a good idea. Like I actually I liked the Halsey thing and like stuff like that. Like I was like, oh, they're having fun with like the game concept and like doing the stage show and stuff like that. And I was
Right.
like, maybe we can capture something of this. I think part of it is just like they don't want just like aging maniacs like me watching the Game Awards. They want like young people who actually like go on social media. So like
Right.
the stuff that I want is never going to be front and center unless something happens with Gen Z or the next youngest generation after that makes them also want that. It's just not for me.
Mike says it's E3 for companies who don't want to pay their own show when they only have 1 to 2 games. That's pretty fair,
Yeah,
right? Because even some of the
that's Summer Game Fest too. Essentially, it's the
yeah,
same kind of thing.
right. Because look at guys like the people behind Hades 2, or what's the game by the guys who do Celeste? It's like they don't have too much
Mm-hmm.
to hype up right now. They're going to be looped into an indie
Earth,
showcase. Uh,
Earthblade, yeah.
yeah. Let's look at these winners real fast. I'm just kind of going through IGN's list from the bottom to the top here. Best adaptation, Arcane called it. Not shocked. Look at what it's compared to. Cyberpunk may have
Good.
had possible, but Arcane. Have you not watched Arcane?
No, I haven't. I've
It's
heard good
worth it.
things about it. Yeah.
I'm not a League of Legends person. I never don't know much about it, but like the show is amazing, so I think it deserves everything it got there. Most anticipated game, no shit. Legend of Zelda. That's been the most anticipated game since they announced it. It's been the most anticipated game since I finished playing it in 2017. Like it's of course this is what's going to be on there.
Before you knew there was a sequel.
Before I knew there was a sequel, when I was sitting there just hoping there'd be a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Best esports team, Loud. Okay, it's a Valorant game. Best esports game, Valorant. Sure, why not?
Sure.
Everything in the best esports game, I said this before, has already been released for over a year. I don't know why these are in there because they're not making new esports games. Maybe we save the esports for the esports awards, which is its own award show and doesn't do nonstop trailers.
Wait, is there there is an esport? There's like an
There's
esports version of the SBs, basically.
yeah. There
Okay,
is the esports awards.
I had no idea.
My day job was up for it. We won at one
Cool.
point and was up for another point, and it is a big showcase. Like it is, but it is a like best team, and I think it goes a little more in the nitty gritty here. Best
Sure.
creator, which I think makes more sense on that versus game awards having a best creator thing there.
Yeah, yeah. I get that it's such an integral part of of gaming's kind of like footprint right now in the media landscape is the idea of having creators get credit and yeah, and esports teams and things like that. But maybe that's what would go into, I guess, like the game awards equivalent of the technical awards, like the thing they do the separate show for with the
Yeah,
Oscars. Like find a maybe that's what the pre-show's purpose really should be is
maybe.
be that version of the technical awards.
I mean, I do think you can rock in some. I think if you're doing creators and stuff, you can bring some personalities that way to your show and have like
Mm-hmm.
that's how you draw eyes, right? It's like you're gonna have esports personalities and content creators, have them walk the red carpet, see who they're excited to see, do introductions and stuff like that. I think that may not mean as much to us older people, but like that does. Those are the personalities who will know what they're talking about and actually be able
Mm-hmm.
to deliver stuff because they're already doing shit like the Kids Choice Awards. Like these guys are already getting that kind of work, and you want
Right.
to attract a younger audience, then the personalities, not
Yeah, I
yeah.
guess it's I'm going to keep coming to the conclusion that maybe the Game Awards just shouldn't exist as we continue on, but we don't have to
Should be a lot
get
of
into that
smaller
right
ones.
now.
All right,
Yeah.
best esports coach, Bazooka, sure. Best esports athlete, yay, yay. Uh, content creator of the year, Ludwig. Not shocked. He was the biggest name out there for a while. I only know two of these five people anyway. I will
I'm a grumpy
say,
old man. I don't know any of this, so it's fine.
yeah, Ludwig's a guy who like was the one who is one this year's version of the person who jumps from 0 to 60 in like a year. I'll say this much: it was just disappointing that it was 4 white guys and 1 white woman, and there's so many other great people doing great work that this just feels weird. All right, things I actually care about: best multiplayer game, Splatoon 3.
People love Splatoon.
People love it. I was disappointed that Shredder's Revenge didn't get it. Um,
Yeah, I again though that was Shredder's Revenge was such a targeted, specific type of like audience game versus something like Splatoon that I think is kind of is very much has very quickly risen to kind of I think the upper echelon of like Nintendo's more
oh
successful
yeah.
franchises,
Oh,
and so it's not
Splatoon 3
surprising
is
to me.
absolutely an S tier Nintendo franchise now. And I agree. Like, there's probably like naturally Splatoon 3 was going and did sell far more. Splatoon 3 amazing numbers as far as like especially in Japan.
Hmm.
Um, I just think having played both, Splatoon 3 is fun. I just think as a multiplayer game, I enjoy playing. Maybe I just enjoy a beat 'em up more than a shooting game, and that's probably where I'm in the
Right.
minority.
Let me be clear in the sense that like I wasn't thinking in terms of my own
Of
preferences. I was
course,
thinking more in terms of what I feel like makes sense.
yeah, I
Um,
was. So I mean, in some places I do that. In some places I was blinded by my own preferences, and I think this
because
is absolutely one of them.
I mean, we're both children of the arcades and stuff like that. I will always
Yes.
love beat 'em ups, and I've tried to get into Splatoon. I've bounced off it each time. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, same. Best sim strategy game: Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. That doesn't
Yep.
shock me. That's another one that felt like it came out too soon to be considered, but at the same time, like look at these other games. Like, yeah, that was always going to be probably the most popular one. I'm not
Well,
surprised by
that's
it.
the other thing too. Is you've got that the Oscars. I don't know what it is, but you've got that kind of cutoff point where where something can no longer be considered because it came out too close to when they're deciding on who wins the awards,
Yeah.
and so then you'll sometimes see a movie pop up that you haven't heard about in a while the next year. But I feel like things in video games move so quickly that they would never want to risk. Like they would never want to risk nominating God of War next year. People will already be playing Tears of the Kingdom and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
they'll vote for what's more recent.
I think
So
that's almost what happened with Elden Ring a little bit here.
yeah, I mean it won
Um,
some things, but You're right.
It was not the sweep that we thought, which well, I think we'll look at in a little bit. Best sports racing game, Gran Turismo 7. People love it. Fine.
Yep.
It was what? It was FIFA,
Great.
it was NBA. Ollie World was the only one I was interested in. So like, yeah, no shit, it was Gran Turismo.
People love, people who are into that kind of racing love Gran Turismo.
Right.
So.
Best family game, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Well deserved, I think, absolutely.
Sure.
Best fighting games. You had some problems with this one.
I just
Multiverses.
What were the other nominees?
It was DNF Duel, which is another anime fighter, kind of similar to Guilty Gear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, All-Star Battle R, The King of Fighters 15, and Sifu. And here's the truth: is that like of those games, like Multiverses was not only a hit, it was a surprise hit. Like so many of these kind of games, these sort of platform fighters, like Smash likes, if you will, are just kind of garbage. Multiverses was actually good and got a huge and blew up and had a huge following.
I think there's just something about and I'm not trying to denigrate the developers who worked very hard on that game and have I think through that effort have made it kind of be the success that it is. I think there's something on like an existential level that bothers me about a game like Multiverses because I'm just seeing like homogenization of all the pop culture I've ever known kind of just really bleeding together into one meaningless mass where nothing is
your bigger problem is with Warner Brothers then. The Warner Brothers Discovery merger.
Well, yeah, well, we don't have to get into all that, but yes, there's just a certain level of there's a certain level of where I just don't understand what are these characters even representing outside of what we remember them from things that aren't anything like what they're in for this fighting game. And that's an argument you could probably level against Super Smash Brothers also, but at least it was all video games. That feels a little bit more just kind of like a celebration of that, even if it's maybe the thing that caused this other worse thing. But it's so I don't know. I think that's where a lot of where my objection comes from that rather than something that's maybe a little more traditionally a fighting game.
Can I be? And I think it's fair. There's a little bit of like wanting to balk at the idea that this isn't a fighting game. I feel like if Smash was up for this, I'd have a little bit of like a trepidation as well because it's not a fighting game in how we think of it. Smash was the first to do it, and therefore gets some extra points. But I get it. That being said, have you played Multiverses? You get to play around with it.
I'm sure it's a fun game.
It's not only it's a fun game, but there's a lot of like great deep cuts and references. Like they do actually a really good job with the source material, even if it is very Space Jam-esque, like new Space Jam-esque. I think it very much like I think this is one that actually more so than these other ones definitely deserves to win. Sifu shouldn't have even been on the fucking ballot. Like that's an action adventure. Like
and that's a game I'm very interested in playing because it feels like a more modern version of a brawler.
Right.
But I just haven't gotten around to it. But it's not a fighting game.
And like King of Fighters was good. It was good, but like honestly, like all three of these games, they're good, and like they have their following at Evo and like the big fighting game stuff. But like even now, Street Fighter and Tekken are far outweighing them, and both those got new games coming out. That it's like Multiverses at least got to a point where it was having a big surge. None of these other ones really got there.
That's fair. I guess you could say that in a way it was kind of a quiet year for fighting games. And I think next year, if it's Tekken 8 versus Street Fighter 6, maybe they won't put it in the pre-show. They'll actually do a thing.
I think next year it will be one segment to watch just to see how those games go head to head, because I think both are looking fantastic right now.
Street Fighter 6 looks
looks great. Tekken 8, the fact that stuff is in-game engine, like
looks crazy.
It's and because I do a lot of Tekken at work, it's like this is going to be pretty nuts.
Both those games.
Best RPG went to Elden Ring. I think that's fair. I don't know if I felt like that should have been action adventure still, not RPG.
It's an RPG.
It's an RPG. I would have felt good if Live won it, but I think Elden Ring deserved it here. It was such a great game. Best action adventure game, God of War Ragnarok. Not shocked by that.
Right. I
Um,
think that's the distinction there. Is I think God of War has RPG elements, but is more of an action adventure, whereas Elden Ring has action adventure elements, but is still at its
Still an
core an RPG.
RPG.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. I think they both deserved to win those because I think if God of War Ragnarok hadn't come out, this would have been Elden Ring's night, and I really thought it was going to be, but we weren't there. Best,
once I saw all the kind of like hype around God of War coming out and that being the more recent game, I was less
the tune
surprised
started.
that
Yeah,
that would be the case. Elden Ring came out so long ago in these
yeah.
terms
I hadn't gotten to
compared
play
to
it when my voting happening, and I'm playing it now, and I'm fucking loving it. Like I absolutely think it belongs, and it's better than the first.
I still got to finish the first one. I never got
Really,
through it.
so good, so good.
It's good, but it didn't like I never got to the point where it fully got its hooks in me. But I'll get around to it eventually.
Yes. Best action game, Bayonetta 3. Sure, I've been playing in the Bayonetta games, but I know people love it.
I love the first two. I heard some mixed things about this one, so I hesitated
I
getting
heard
it.
I heard the ending is a little wonky.
Yeah,
That's kind of
but
it.
I'll probably pick it up eventually. I did like the first two games.
Innovation and accessibility, God of War won it. Good for them. I think it's great that they have it. It was hard to, if I don't use it, I don't see it. So who am I to say?
Yeah.
Best VR AR game went to Moss Book 2. The only one in this that isn't a like first person game. So good to see people are trying something different in VR. Best community
That was the
support.
thing. Seeing an ad for a VR game is still. I understand that's hard to advertise, but like, it just never looks as cool when it's like the floating hands, like when they showed the trailer for the
Right.
Horizon thing. And again, I'm sure it's very immersive and exciting to be in the VR doing that stuff. But it's like, how do you really advertise that?
Well, yeah, that's also doubly tough because it's showing these great articulated motions and not what VR actually is, which is a lot of like
Yeah,
this.
it's a lot of fiddling around. Yeah.
Like, yeah, this does not look good in a commercial. Um, Best community support, Final Fantasy 14 online. That makes sense.
People love that
That
game.
has had a huge following and still does. Best mobile game. This was Marvel Snaps to win. I don't know if you got to play Marvel Snap. I've not, but I have. But everyone I know who
played a little
has
bit of
won't shut up about it. Like people love it.
You want my very unpopular opinion on Marvel Snap?
Wow. All right. Yeah. Please.
This is actually a very unpopular opinion about another game because Marvel Snap is a lot like Smash Up, and I remain in the minority among our friends and everyone that I don't like Smash Up that much.
Have you only ever played with Hannah? Is that why?
It's just
That's not a no.
It's not a bad game. No, it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game. It's just that it always goes on for longer than I want it to.
Yeah, you've
And
only ever played with Hannah.
I'm not getting in the middle of this. But and so Marvel, as soon as I started to play Marvel Snap, and I was like, oh, this is just like Smash Up. I was like, I could, and now unfortunately, the real kiss of death has arrived, which is Vampire Survivors on mobile, which I downloaded and was a huge mistake.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, if that had come out before, Dance Mike says, "Wow, the rare Tro is wrong portion of the show."
Oh yeah, we try to make that segment every time.
Yeah, it's true. Next time we'll have a jingle for it. This replaces the Patrick is wrong segment. He says.
Well, anyway, what won best mobile game? Was it Marvel
Snap?
Snap?
It was Marvel Snap. It was Marvel Snap.
Everyone loves it. It's fine. I know I'm in the wrong here, but
you know why I'm happy to see it win. Because it's the only one on here that doesn't have some sort of pay gotcha program, right?
That is important, yes.
And like that, because that's the stigma behind mobile gaming, right? And that's something that I got to give Marvel Snap credit for, that it's just cosmetics. And like, I think between that and some of the stuff Fortnite's doing is like, if we're moving away to a just cosmetics pay and otherwise you can do your thing and like you don't have to pay to win in mobile games, then I think we'll start moving towards a better acceptance of it. I think it's right now like Diablo Immortal's on there. It's hard to separate the money grubbing nature from the mobile game industry.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that microtransactions took over so fully, and a lot of it was pay to win mechanics, that it's kind of hard to unmoor yourself from that, especially if you're an executive for one of those companies who loves taking home like 7-figure bonuses from all the microtransactions you're selling.
Right.
Like it's just like how do you, unless you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, how do you actually stop taking advantage of people? And
Exactly.
I mean, I personally wish there was even just a way for cosmetics to be earned, because I know some people are always going to be tempted by purchasable things. But I think the trend towards just cosmetics is a trend in the right direction.
For sure. For sure. Um, I'm gonna do these two together because best indie game and best debut indie game went to Stray. If Stray was gonna win best indie game, it should win best debut indie game. Even though I think Vampire Survivors probably deserves to be
The
in there instead, and I think just by pure nature of how utterly addictive it is to play,
the
I feel like the reviews for Stray were fine, like not
yeah,
not
people
great. They were just okay. Like I think people liked. I think reviews for Neon White were better. Just there was less hype beforehand and less talking about it afterwards.
right. From my understanding, if you're just going on pure game quality, the winner probably should have been Neon White. From my understanding of people's reaction who played it, Stray had a lot of hype because you get to play as a cat. As a man who loves cats, I get it.
Yeah,
But you're right. Once the game came out, it seemed, everyone was like, "Yeah, it's fine," but it's not. It's not
it
actually
was like
doing
a
anything
solid
particularly
7 out of
groundbreaking.
10. I feel like
Yeah.
it was getting, and so to
Also,
see that as
it's the games branch of like a pretty major movie studio, so for that to be the best indie is like a
yeah,
little iffy.
yeah, that there should be something there. I think you're right. Um,
But then also the thing that I wrote in my notes was that the reason Vampire Survivors didn't win is because all the people who would have voted for it weren't able to stop playing for it long enough to get online.
that is fair.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Best ongoing game, Final Fantasy 14 Online, not shocking.
Yep.
Games for Impact, As Dusk Falls. Game for Impact means absolutely nothing, except maybe a pat in the back so that Jeff Keighley can feel good about giving something small an award. Uh,
Yeah. And I appreciate anytime they do the kind of like outreach type stuff, or they do it's one thing I really love about the indie world showcases and stuff like that that you see are when they highlight
yes,
developers in different countries that you don't normally think of as being like hubs for game development, and seeing what
agreed,
they're coming up with.
agreed. But I do think these kind of things should be taken into consideration for all the other genres,
It
right? And
shouldn't be a charity
I
award.
don't think
Yes.
they aren't. This feels like a handout when these games should be taken as seriously. And I would like to see something like Endling in an action adventure
Right,
category.
or that game Raji, or any of that stuff. Like
Yes,
it should be really considered. I agree with that. It
and
shouldn't just
I
be
think
like a
it's almost kind of like foreign, like how there's like a foreign film category. It's like no, if it's a great film, we don't need to lock it into a category that it's only allowed to win. Like
yeah.
let it be let it be in contention.
Yeah,
We're
if
a
it's the best,
global industry.
right, it's
So
not called best domestic picture. It's just called best picture.
exactly. Um best performance, Christopher Judge. He had his speech on
Very long
that.
speech.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this speech, but look, you're
There
about to say something.
there's a couple things. There's some stuff I liked about the speech. I liked that he admitted that if he had known that he was reading for a video game when he was auditioning for the first one, he probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I think it was great. I think it was
I
great
think
for him to say.
acknowledging that stigma is important. And then I think that was, in spite of the awkwardness of Al Pacino, who it felt like your grandfather trying to tell a story, and as much as that kind of all went on for too long, the stuff involving, and this is just because my only analog for this really is something like the Oscars, the stuff that involved like humans giving performances felt the most like a real award show to me, than a
Yes,
lot of the other stuff. And I was like, well, and I guess that's just because I'm basically watching like the Oscars of video game acting when it's this part. And like, how can we translate the rest of it to also feel like a proper award show like that part did?
you know what would help? and I don't think this is something that Jeff Keighley would want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Get a special person to host every year. Do
I
that. Get a comedian or a perform. Fucking, could you imagine how good this would be if Ron Funches, a comedian who like knows video games, was
He's
hosting
funny.
and doing those same kind of antics that you see from the Oscars or the MTV or like whatever awards? Like that's like those kind of skits are what make some of those moments great. Like I think
Yeah.
Jeff Keighley is great, but like he's a flat nondescript white guy. He's
a perfectly nice guy. He's fine
yes.
for something like Summer Games Fest, where he's just kind of the bridge between trailers and is
Right.
bringing some genuine excitement. But I agree. I think just more the problem right now is it still a lot of the time feels like the video game industry showing up to Jeff Keighley's party because they feel bad and not like a actual buy-in from a lot of the people involved. And
Yeah.
I think having a host for the show who's like a dedicated host who could really like handle it and like you said like bring some creativity and like charisma in and then maybe get some more participation of some of those like get some of those creators like involved in doing
Yeah.
segments and get some of the other people who are game to really participate in bits rather than try to do improvised things with a bunch of like game executives and
Right.
stuff like that or Muppets in the case of Animal.
Well, I mean, I would even
that,
also say that on top of something like best performance, I think it might be good to see best male and female performance. I don't know if you need to split it up, but like it allows more people time to shine, and certain especially when there are usually more male roles in gaming than female roles anyway. I'd also argue that I would love to see segments like best new character. If there's new IP or characters introduced this year,
yeah,
like best character this year, if fucking just because I'm playing it right now, Tyr from God of War. Why not think about all the work that goes into crafting a character for a game, the model, the design, the performance, the storytelling. That's more than just the performance, but I think.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you want to have fun with it, you could have the developer come up or have the character do it in a little motion cap model thing. Like, it'd be a chance for like new fighting game characters and that kind of stuff to come in. Like, I think there's something more to like splitting things out that way.
And then you could also do a best create a character. What if that were an award?
I mean, it'd be unfair for me to take that home every year, but yeah, sure.
We gotta get some trophies in your background.
I don't have nearly enough. Chris Judge won it. I would have liked to see Ashley Birch win it just because I think she's fantastic and I should win everything, but that's fine.
Yeah.
She's getting TV time now, so she's doing good.
And also in the grand tradition of Horizon, where it came out and was immediately eclipsed by another game, it's fitting that she unfortunately never gets the recognition she deserves for it.
It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Best audio design, God of War. We talked about this. It'd be great to know what goes into best audio design. What does that fucking mean?
Outside of it being bombastic, like show me something like what was that Christopher Nolan movie 1917?
Yeah,
it was like really arresting like audio stuff. Like show me a clip of like why is this in contention? And yeah, the musical performances start to get into that somewhat, but again, I think I'm just going to keep coming back to like there are so many creative ways to like make this an award show, and I just don't think they're ever going to do that.
Right. Best score music went to God of War Ragnarok. I'll be honest, I'm playing it now, and like the songs don't stand out to me. I'm sure they're good, but like in my head, I don't know if any of these. Elden Ring, I only really remember the theme, and it's a badass theme, but it's not like the rest of it sticks with me. Like I thought, honestly, the only thing was really going to be in my head. I think I initially said in my video that I would have passed it off to Xenosaga or whatever, but I really think Metal Hellsinger only because it did something unique and different.
Yes, I agree. Or just throw it to Xenoblade because you weren't going to give it any other awards. Give it something to satiate that fan base since you gave it the nomination.
Well, that fan base already won 100% player's choice by giving it to Genshin Impact, so I think they're fine.
People also love Genshin Impact.
People love it. Best art direction, Elden Ring. I agree with that. Best narrative, God of War. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's a focus game.
best game direction, Elden Ring. See, now we're getting to the top of the stuff now, and it's like, yeah, I guess all the ones that like these top levels, art direction, uh, game direction, and game of the year go to Elden Ring. Narrative goes to God of War.
Hmm.
That's what I'd expect at the top
Pretty
there.
much.
Were you shocked, especially as probably the biggest, I think, From Software fan I know personally? Are you
Sure.
shocked that Elden Ring didn't feel as much of a sweep as we may have expected?
Which is funny you say that because it did take most of the top awards at the end.
It
But
did.
I know what you mean. Like it
Well,
wasn't a
it it
clear.
took most of the top awards at the end of what we're reading on here. I think part of why it doesn't feel like a sweep is because it only ever got 2 speeches, which is less than I expected. But that's because
Fair.
90% of the games got no speeches.
But it's also, well, and that kind of exemplifies too why I think why I'm not that surprised, as well reviewed as that game is, and as much as I love that game. Those games do specific things very well, and then that's kind of at the expense of other things by design. Like it was never going to have best narrative. Bless you. It was never going to have best narrative because it's just not a narrative driven game. Like there's a lot of story that you can dig into, but it's not going to be like a God of War or a Horizon where the story is really front and center,
Yeah.
or Last of Us or anything like that. And so I think I actually would have been. I actually think I would have been a little bit more suspicious if it was sweeping awards that I didn't feel like it deserved, rather than get winning pretty much all the awards. I think that made sense for it.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, I feel like we had joked a long time ago about the idea that like Tears of the Kingdom didn't release because it didn't want to have to compete for Game of the Year in all these awards with Elden Ring. Even though that was kind of a joke, do you still feel like that could have been the case? Or now that we've removed from it,
It would have been really interesting to
it
see
would
who
have it
won.
would have been very interesting. It also would have made this top tier. Like, this was a sparse year for games, so it would have made this top tier probably feel a little more stacked.
Yeah, I mean, basically, ever since the pandemic, it's been, we're
Yeah,
kind of still feeling its effects in a
I
lot
think 23 we're coming out of the
of these
bubble.
things. I
We're
think
coming
so
out of
too.
it. Yeah,
God, I'm excited for Final Fantasy 16. I just to throw it out there randomly. I'm ready for that game. I'm ready to sit down and
well, screw it. It's
be
not random
embarrassed.
because we've gone through all the awards. The only thing that's left is to go through the bulk of the show, is the
Yeah,
trailers.
the rest of it, all the advertising.
Um, I'll have well again. I'll just name some things out, and we'll kind of go through it all
Sure.
one at a time. And like, if we have nothing to say, we have nothing to say. But let's start just because you brought it up. Final Fantasy 16. Um, I feel like I am so hyped for this game, and I still don't know what to expect. Gameplay wise, style wise, like I am both so excited, and I have nothing to base that on.
I'm just hoping it's going to be really like epic and have fun combat, and probably also be really stupid when it comes to like the dialogue
Oh
and
God,
in
yes. So
cutscenes and
like
things.
every Final Fantasy game.
Like every Final
Yeah.
Fantasy game. But I'm excited. I'm excited that they're going back to a medieval setting because they haven't done it in a while.
Yes. I was trying to think about this because like how many like at what point are they still Final Fantasies and not Final Sci-Fis? Because that's what it's been feeling like.
Right, and I understand because there was a quote from what's his name, Yoshinori Takase, was one of the guys who um, was like really in charge of kind of
Dance.
bringing
We'll do
Final
we'll do
Fantasy.
Judas next. I promise you.
But yeah, I'll have something to say about that. About like his about like their thought process and why they started to move away from fantasy settings as the series went on, and it is an interesting idea of like we need to be fully exploring what the idea of fantasy is and like what a fantastical world can be like. I do agree it is. I mean, there is kind of a weird distinction that there is a genre called fantasy and a genre called science fiction, even though science fiction is also in essence a fantasy.
Yes.
um
And that's why
so
they're
I think
usually looped together in Barnes and Noble, right? Like, yeah.
right. But I will say, even the more sci-fi Final Fantasy still have like a bunch of wacky magic bullshit in it. So it's always honestly the worst offender of those was the movie Spirits
Oh
Within,
God,
and that's why
yeah.
no one liked it. But I'm excited to see them go back to a more, I guess, traditional setting, but also like I'm also down for them to be wild and creative as long as the games are fun to play.
Yeah,
Final Fantasy 15, I didn't really enjoy that much,
I actually, I
but I'm hoping
did,
this
and I
one
just
will.
kind of suddenly stopped playing. Um, I didn't like the setting. I think if the setting was different, I probably would have been into it more. I also
Yeah,
felt the game was a little button mashy for me. But one thing I liked there, and I'm excited to see here, is the scale of enemies. Like I love this idea of fighting small things, fighting big things. Like it does feel epic, and
yeah,
that's what it needs. And I think yeah, I'm not crazy about this move into action combat. Like I don't know, I'm a Final Fantasy purist. I've been for the upcoming spoilers for the upcoming episode to be filmed. We still got 2 episodes, an episode before then, but an upcoming episode to be filmed is gonna be about partially about Final Fantasy 6, and like that being my favorite.
hmm,
It's like everything has felt downhill, and now it's I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. But this still looks like it's going to be a blast. I think Final Fantasy 16, if it lives up to the hype, will absolutely be one of these top tier games for
for
next year.
sure. And the last thing I'll say about it is I think I said this to you off mic before, but I think Final Fantasy VII Advent Children kind of broke everyone at Square, and they've been so dedicated to how can we make our games look like this ever since.
Yes.
And so that's because it was after that game that they really started digging down into, or after that movie that they started digging down into the actiony combat
Yeah,
so
and
much.
it's
And I agree. I would love a return to. I honestly, the combat in Final Fantasy VII Remake felt like it was threading the needle the most effectively between
right.
action game and like still tactical RPG active
But I
time battle
but I
stuff.
wouldn't mind that looking like a little more of the cartoony fantasy, the little cartoony anime fantasy that we see. Not full anime that like most like Tales gets to, but like I don't know. Like
Yeah,
I love the aesthetic of 6 and 9. Honestly, it's not just the SNES era, but like
yeah,
Final Fantasy 9 has a great look to it too. Like I miss some of that, and I worry when Final Fantasy gets dark because that's what happened with 7. 7 got very dark, and everyone loves 7. I get that 7's an amazing game,
yeah,
and I understand that too. I do think 7's a great game, but after Final Fantasy gets dark, that becomes everybody's favorite, and it stays that way. And I want bright, colorful Final Fantasy. It can still be dark in tone, but I want variety and magical places, and not just like dark, bleak, and kind of
yeah.
angsty.
I get it. Well, the guy in charge of Final Fantasy 14 is in charge of this one, and everyone loves Final Fantasy 14 since he took the helm. So hopefully he works that same magic here.
That's true. All right, let's talk Judas to Dan's and Mike's request here. This was a shocker. I remember hearing that the studio was working on some stuff and that we were just kind of waiting. You, I think, famously did not play BioShock or any
Oh
of the
no, I
BioShock
played them.
games.
I
Oh,
played
you
all
did.
three of those games. Hmm.
I thought you did. I thought you didn't because it was you got you too
I
sick playing it.
I powered through. I liked those games a lot, so I forced myself to keep playing.
So you excited for Judas?
I am excited.
Good.
I'm totally down for not Bioshock 4 essentially, but actually Bioshock 4 in essence. And yeah, it looks crazy. It's I'm sure it will
The
be
aesthetic
similar.
looks great. Like first of
Yeah.
the character models look great. I'm actually
Hmm.
really into this. This less of this like
I like that you're a female pro tag. I like
yeah.
that. I just I'm into the aesthetic. I like the updated version of whatever this is going to be, plasmids, vigors, whatever you want to
Right.
call it.
There's a little bit of there's a little of a cartoony vibe to the
Mhm.
character models. Yeah, I thought it looked
In-
really cool.
Infinite was kind of headed in that direction already, so it makes sense that he's sticking to that aesthetic here.
Yeah. There's an element. I'm sorry, I got a little bit of runny nose and it's driving me
You're
nuts.
good.
There's an element of it that remind me of the Outer Wilds a little bit. I'm not sure why.
I'm not super familiar with the Outer Wilds or Outer Worlds because there were two
Outer
of those names.
Wild Worlds. Worlds is
The Obsidian one or the Time
yes,
Loop one.
the
Okay.
Obsidian one.
Okay.
I've not played Outer Wilds, but I've heard I need to and I want to play that. I mean
Yeah,
Outer Worlds. Yes.
I figured, but yeah, that's yeah. It's I mean it's the classic it seems like it's going to be the classic Bioshock thing of person arrives at fucked up society that has either already collapsed or like Bioshock Infinite will collapse around you as you go through it. So
Right.
and based on that trailer, some wild shit is going to happen. So I'm
It's
excited.
gonna be great. Um, all right. I'm scrolling through a couple here that I have on the list. We saw something for Horizon called The Mountain. Okay, great. VR,
Sure,
sure.
VR, fine. Yeah,
Among Us Hide and Seek. Among Us is a game I don't play because these kind of games always give me anxiety. But a hide and seek mode sounds like it could be a lot of fun. It's less of the pointing blame and more of just the like run around a map, get things done, and don't get caught.
right. It's a little more. It's a little more like Among Us felt a little more like you were playing, what's it, Ultimate
Werewolf.
Werewolf or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit closer to like video game in its mechanics. So cool,
Yeah,
cool
I
for
think
them
I think I
switching it
think
up.
if there's the handful of people, myself included, that weren't Among Us players, this will probably take them in. So good on
Right.
that. Was smart of them to do that, especially when they were thinking about doing a sequel and decided no, fuck it, this game's
Yeah.
too successful.
This is doing too well. Why would we do again? Why would you do a sequel if your original is
Right.
so successful?
Destiny 2 Lightfall. They're still making Destiny 2 content, so good on them. I'm always shocked that that's still around.
Not a thing I'm into, but great for people who play that game.
We saw some stuff from Dune Awakening. I'm shocked that that still has a following. We're getting games out of that. Like, do we care still about Dune?
Also,
Are they
Dune
making those
is
other movies still?
they are making the next Dune
Okay,
movie,
so
which
then
is the
there's
second
money to be
half of the
made.
first book. So yeah, I mean it's a franchise. It's just so weird. It's so bizarre to me that they're trying to make video games out of Dune because that anyway,
Right.
it's odd.
Fire Emblem Engage. I'm only interested because I know people who are in those games, so that just gets more voice acting work. That's great.
Sure.
Call of
Again, Fire Emblem
Duty.
fans, yeah.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 raids. Okay, fine, whatever. Um, yeah, we saw a little bit about Wild Hearts briefly. This is the not Monster Hunter game by Epic, I believe.
Yeah.
Looks fun. I always like games where I'm beating up on something twice my size. So
Yeah. Monster Hunter is one of those games that feels like on paper it feels like a thing I should be obsessed with, and I still have not been able to get into any of them.
I think I briefly got obsessed with World
Mm-hmm.
and loved it. But never played with anybody. Like I didn't know anyone else who had it, and I wasn't going to
Right.
join random people because I just don't like doing that. So I feel like if I had a crew to play with, then yes. Same with Rise. I started playing Rise and was really enjoying it, but I fell off quickly because the maps weren't as big. Like honestly, World felt so big, and those
Right.
those environments were so cool. Then Monster Hunter Rise was on Switch, and so it just felt like maybe a third the size. Everything was like a third smaller, and that was less fun.
But you had a grappling hook.
They had grappling hook. Um, the Colossal Cave seems interesting.
Which one was that?
That's the one. That is a first person fantasy game. I don't think it's like first person movement. It's based off of a very, very old DOS game, I believe.
Interesting.
And that is literally being remade by the people who made the original game in like the 80s. So it's what I'm curious about. I'm skeptic, and here's I'm going to be somewhat ageist in this one. Is that people who were coding and making some of the earliest games ever coming back and trying to make a modern game for consoles? It's like, great, go for it. I'm not sitting here thinking this is going to be the great experience, and I have no attachment to the original. So
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they brought in some people who have made other types of games or have done some of that work themselves.
I
In
hope so, but
between.
they're not touting that.
Mhm.
So they even had the creators of it come out and do, I think, a brief intro for this as well.
Right.
I'll be interested. I'm going to keep an eye out because I do like the idea of retro remakes, and this is for sure the retroest of remakes.
Yeah.
We saw Valiant Hearts coming home. I didn't realize there was a sequel to Valiant Hearts, but
It's wild because I feel like that game came out forever ago.
exactly.
Valiant Hearts: The Great War. So cool. I mean, if you like the original, you finally get a sequel, so that's cool.
Here was the big one. I think they kicked off with this one too. Dead Cells Return to Castlevania. I've played
I'm
a little bit
excited.
of Dead Cells, but Tro, I know you were deep in it here.
I
Have you
was,
done
but
a
you know,
lot of
I
the DLC stuff for Dead
no,
Cells?
because you know what? I never finished it. I actually never
Oh,
got to the end. I it's the my big. There's a lot I like about Dead Cells, and I'm very excited for this expansion. I think my big critique of Dead Cells as a kind of run-based roguelike is I feel like the runs are a little long, and so by the time I got to the end of a run where I died, I was like, I don't really want to jump right back in. I need to like take a break.
mm,
And so that is why I've never. But anytime I pick that game back up again, I'm always like, God, this feels so good to control, and like you're running around and doing all using the different weapons and all that stuff, and it. I'm super psyched for them to do anything with Castlevania. If any of these publishers who aren't interested in doing things with their intellectual properties are just like rent them out to
oh
indie
God,
developers who
yes,
are excited about using them, if Capcom wants to let somebody take a crack at a Mega Man game in the same way, like by all means, just
yeah.
please. Like,
Someone not Inafune, that'd be great.
well, they're never gonna let him touch it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's but something to that effect. Like, yeah, maybe make a Mega Man game that's not just like out of spite, like Mega Man 11 was, because they were just like, Mighty Number 9 can't be the last Mega Man game. Commission another game, please.
Right, right.
But then it seems like that franchise is dormant again. But
I mean, yeah, I would love to see
Castlevania,
Castlevania get some life to it for sure.
I'm excited for that. That if Konami just wants to make pachinko machines, just like let other people handle your stuff. That's what they're doing with the new Silent Hill. Also, they're handing that off
That's true.
like more experienced horror developers, and like just do that.
I mean,
You get to still make all that money.
I'm gonna say the same thing here that I would say about Metroid is like just hand it off to the Hollow Knight crew. Hand it off to Team Cherry, but Team Cherry is too busy
I was about to
with a
say they'll
game that was
never.
supposed to come out, that was in that Xbox showcase saying everything was going to be out this year on Game Pass, and Silk Song is still not in my goddamn hands. Okay,
I was
it's
about to
fine.
say that they can't hand it to Team Cherry because that game will never get released. And I'm sure Silk Song will be amazing when it comes out. But
That's what's most aggravating about it. The longer it takes, the better it's going to be, and I hate this.
and honestly, Mercury's team did such a great job with Metroid Dread that I am comfortable with whose hands that franchise.
That's true. That's true. So, but I would love to see a Metroidvania Castlevania come back to
For
me in
sure.
some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Vampire Survivors. Talk a little bit about that now on mobile. Well, say goodbye to everybody. That's gonna be the most
Including me.
popular game on the subway.
That'll be the game everyone misses their stop playing.
Replaced. This one seemed interesting. I wasn't sure what. Like my initial thought was, "Ooh, is this a Metroidvania too?" But I think we've actually left the world where every game is a Metroidvania. That's no longer happening for me. But this was a cool sort of pixel arty cyberpunk. It was a new trailer game. It was one of the earlier ones shown. But it was pixel arty, but it was also had a 3D element to it, even though it was all side scroller.
I don't remember this one, but I will look it up later.
Yeah, it's there's a couple here that I have to like remember. I think it was one that there was a lot of there was a lot of trailers.
Side note, what was that game that was like you're looking at the picture frame and then it becomes
Viewfinder.
That looked cool.
I am that is my shit. 100%.
I'll do whatever it takes to alleviate nausea in a first person game if it's that interesting. So like bring it on.
You ever played The Witness?
No, I think I have it because of PS Plus or something. But
Witness was a lot of fun. It was a very peaceful like puzzle game because you're no enemies. You're just walking around solving these puzzles. But like yeah, this has Witness vibes with the elements of. There's another game that came out that is on Game Pass that I played. Also with very much that like. You would grab something, then you'd walk away or move forward, and that would make something bigger or smaller in the space because of perspective. I love perspective puzzles. This is I think Viewfinder is gonna be a fucking blast.
Yeah, that game looked cool.
After Us, anime, hopping around, studio, don't know much about this. Blue Protocol. This was, I don't remember which one. This was Bandai Namco.
It was a Bandai Namco one.
And it was an MMORPG. It was a very anime-esque MMORPG.
Once I saw it was an MMO, I'll admit I tuned out a little bit because MMO is not my thing.
There's a couple here that I'm like that too. We'll see. We'll see. MMOs I feel like aren't as big as they once were, but maybe they don't need to be anymore.
I mean, Final Fantasy 14 has been kind of ruling the roost, so
that's true.
Let's see if people want to try to dethrone it.
But I don't think you need as huge of a player base for them to be successful anymore. I think that used to be the case, and maybe not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see, Remnant 2. I don't remember what this was.
Remnant from the Ashes is a fun game. That's a game I have on my PS5. So that's cool that they're making another one. Those games are neat. It's like Dark Souls, but a over the shoulder shooter.
Oh yes, okay, I
So
do remember this now. Cool. I'm sure I'll check it out. Immortals of Avium. This was a first-person like fantasy shooter kind of game.
oh yeah, you know what? Even though I'm not a first person shooter guy, I'm very on board with first person shooter type game that's not just guns. I like the idea that it's
Agreed.
gonna be like magic and shit like that. That's yeah. I literally wrote down I'm into magic FPS. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that seemed neat. No gameplay in that, so we'll see. But like the world building of that alone, I'm a sucker for fantasy games. That's great. This was one that I didn't expect to be as into, but
what's that?
Banishers: Ghosts of Eden. This was
Huh.
mostly a story-based trailer where the guy's it's a fantasy setting. The guy's sitting at a table with a woman, and another woman's talking to him.
Right, right. I remember this trailer.
And like I was like, it showed a little bit of gameplay at the end. The gameplay felt very God of War, third person action. Like it's what to be
Yeah,
expected. But the story and this idea that like this seems obviously like a lost lover that he had to banish or is a ghost and he's trying not to ban, like immediately the storytelling potential is like, if they have good writers on this could be a very good touching game that I think people will get into.
I
And
think
that
so.
intrigued me a bit.
Just a quick sidebar on this. I'm always going to be infinitely more interested in a gameplay trailer or a game trailer that has gameplay in it
Agreed.
versus anything that's just cinematic. Like it's cool if you just want to announce that something's in the works, or you want to showcase your setting or whatever. But
Which
like
is great for
ultimately,
existing
it's a game.
IPs, but I don't give a fuck if it's a new IP because
That's
I
the thing. If
don't
it's
know
something
what I'm getting into.
I've never heard of, I'm like, okay, I just saw a trailer for a thing that's not a movie.
Why am I supposed to be
That's
excited? Yeah.
right. What is this besides just you're telling me you have an idea?
So like agreed. There were a couple on here that like that was like, am I supposed to be excited? Like am I supposed to care? Because like I have nothing to get hyped about because I have no attachment to this yet.
Yeah.
Show me gameplay or art or something more to sink my teeth into.
Something that did show gameplay was Hades 2, which I'm excited
Hey,
about.
yeah, let's talk about that. Hades too. I did not realize we were going to be getting a sequel. I don't know if anyone
I
was. Like
no, they've never done sequels before. They never did one for Bastion or Transistor or anything. So that's cool. I mean, Hades is their most successful game to date. So and it seemed like there's more they could do with that world. So it makes sense that they would just continue with it.
that's great. I never actually got to play Hades. I plan to because there's enough. I have enough services that allow me to play it. I need to do it. But like you,
Yes,
I know played a lot of it. You
it's
played
very
through
good,
it, got to the
very good
end.
game. Mm-hmm.
Definitely
Oh
picking
yeah,
this one
I went
up.
through the whole thing. I'll be picking this up for sure.
Was this character in the first game, or is this like
I don't
new?
think so.
Okay,
I don't remember her being in it, but it's been a while since I played. That was very much a tail end of 2020 game experience. My
okay.
brain is still not fully recovered from that year, so I don't fully remember everyone.
It the art style is great. I think the fact that it's a
Yeah,
female protagonist means it's just going to be more people getting horny for Greek characters because
it's just
it's a very it's like fighting game levels of horny. The character
it
design
is.
in this game,
Yes, really, the first one was like that too. Yeah, it's just a
yeah,
lot of ogling at bodies of all types,
which
but
is
that's which is kind of
great.
fitting for the Greek pantheon. So
Honestly,
I'm
yeah.
here
Let's
for it.
sexualize everybody.
Hmm.
All right, Transformers Reactivate. I did not realize it was a Transformers game when I was watching this
That
trailer.
was kind of my thing. Was we watched the trailer and then at the end it said Transformers. I was like, okay,
I'll be honest. I was more interested before I found out it was a Transformers
right,
game.
yeah. I was like, I'm all like I've never been the biggest Transformers fan anyway, and it just feels like you're not focusing on the things that are appealing about that
Right.
franchise.
Yeah. I mean, truth be told, like if it's not Beast Wars, I don't care. Like that's like Beast Wars, I fucking loved, and everything else just I never got into.
They're
So
making that movie now with
I'm
the
I'm
Beast
stoked.
Wars
They're all in
Transformers
it.
in it.
Like,
Yeah,
whoo boy, hell yeah. Not to give Michael Bay any money, but goddamn, I'm excited for it.
I don't think he's direct. I at least don't think he's directing them anymore.
Thank
Because
God.
those were real dire. Those movies.
Um, Forspoken demo now available on a PlayStation Network. I do want to pick this up. I'm very curious about it. Square Enix. I mean, honestly, it looks like it's a fun fantasy world they've built here.
Yeah, I think the advertising has done it a disservice by trying way too hard to be like glib and like you know uh, capturing some type of internet humor that no one's interested in.
I'll be honest,
I
I don't even think it's that much. That's that worse than anything else.
I just think people are tired of it, and so I think people were inclined, and also some people are racists and didn't like a game with a black protagonist.
Let's
But
call it what it is.
you know, we'll save that for the end of the Game Awards. But yeah, a game that where you do parkour and do cool magic spells, that sounds great. Like
Fucking blast, yeah. All right, they announced the Baldur's Gate 3 release window. I bought that at early access and only played it once and
yeah.
did not find it that fun. But I'm if I still have access to it from that early access payment, then I'm going to enjoy it. Sure.
I mean, again, people love those. You know, people love those old Baldur's Gate games. That's why Divinity: Original Sin was a big deal for people too. And so
Yeah,
it was never my thing, but more power to you. If
we'll
you're
give it a
getting the
shot.
game you want.
Maybe someday we'll play actual D&D again. Returnal announced for PC. Great. I got a PlayStation.
Sure. Returnal's a fun game.
Last of Us.
Good that more people get to play it.
I thought it was interesting that we were seeing trailers for games being released for other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's great, but I don't know if that's like newsworthy in my head.
Yeah.
It's like
announcing Vampire Survivors for mobile made sense because that game felt like a mobile game.
Yeah.
So I understood including that, and also that game was kind of a big deal. But yeah, and I guess it's still news that PlayStation Studios games are becoming, not PlayStation exclusive. So it's worthwhile, I guess.
Yeah. Lords of the Fallen. How do you feel about this one? As our Souls-like expert.
You mean the Lords of the
Fallen?
Oh,
the Lords of the... That's right, because it's... Yeah. I don't remember the first Lords of the Fallen. I don't know this thing... I don't think I remember this thing existing.
I played a little bit of it. It wasn't that... honestly, there's a lot of Souls-likes I don't get into as much because they don't quite get the feel of the combat right.
Yeah.
I would say the only kind of Souls-like I've gotten into that wasn't just a Souls game was probably Neo, which was because Team Ninja knows combat, and so they kind of just married that to the Souls aesthetic, and it mostly works. But I'll I'll wait and see what people say. If it sounds like it'll be good, I'll get it on sale. It's not what I'm lining up for. That's
a very political answer.
Yep. I'm running for video game office, so I have to keep my answers nonpartisan.
Here we go. Smart. No. Keep it down the line. You really you switched over to independent, so you in Arizona.
We don't have enough time in this video for that.
This was one that was interesting to me. I didn't know how to make. I think I'm excited for it because the cast seems insane. But Crime Boss Rockay City. On one hand, it's like, all right, are you just shooting for Grand Theft Auto's spot? But at the same time, it looks cool. The cast seems great. It seems super if it starts getting good reviews and like there's more to it than just a great cast, I'm into it.
It's been a little while since they've tried to do it. Like, there were Grand Theft Auto clones for a long time when that series first became popular, and I feel like that has been dormant. So
yeah,
if they, in a weird way, outside of Saints Row, that's kind of a throwback in itself for more Grand Theft Auto clones to pop up. I'm again not immediately impressed that you paid money to get a bunch of recognizable faces to do mocap for your game. It's still got to be a fun video game to play, and also, I guess I haven't seen Michael Madsen in a while, but he looked real rough.
Yeah, he looked better in the game than he did in real life. That's for damn sure.
So I felt kind of weird watching that, but I have no reason to really be against it at this time. That's fine.
Yeah, aesthetically, I mean, I'm digging it, but I also did dug Vice City aesthetically. So like, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
Hellboy looked cool.
Yep.
Hellboy looked straight from the page. Like that was
The art
awesome.
style's cool. I kind of like the over the shoulder thing they're doing with that. That looked interesting.
Here was I got 3 ones I'm interested in, kind of back to back here.
Mm-hmm.
Bayonetta Origins. This was not what I was expecting from a Bayonetta game.
No, it was not.
Like this looks like a fucking indie game. This looks like early Square Enix when they were trying to figure out what to do on mobile with like Lost Sphere. Like
Yeah, it's
is this even the same? I know it's the same character. Is it though? Like doesn't feel like the same world.
they're very dedicated to this idea of like you've met Bayonetta, but now you need to get to know Cereza, which is what I think the Bayonetta 3 also spent time on in its story. I'm a little worried that Platinum is losing sight of why people like Bayonetta,
Yeah.
which is not because of stuff like this. It's cool if they want to do like a kind of smaller scale, side game in between whatever they're going to work on next. But it's
Bayonetta has never
I'm not
struck me
quite
as
sure who
like
this is
heavy on
for.
story, right?
I'm really not sure who this is for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a weird one to see, but we'll see how it plays out. Like Bayonetta, like I said, I don't ever think of it as like a story game as much as it's just like action and kind of pulpy. So to do this weird like cute like story time game,
Like indie feeling type
yeah.
game. Yeah.
We talked about a little bit Earthblade. Earthblade looked great, looks gorgeous. Love
Yep.
Celeste.
Love
Love
Celeste.
love Towerfall. Like literally, I
Mm-hmm.
think this is a
Also
company
fun.
that like extremely okay games, fantastic stuff. This should be a blast. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that one.
It looks good. I mean, it's not coming out till after next year, but it looks cool. I always like
Yeah,
their art style, and I'm sure it'll feel good to like traverse the world, and
that's it,
yep,
right? The
I'm down for it.
controls for those are always great. And then I got and I'm excited for this one. I don't know if I'll play it, but I'm excited to see it. Was Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. As a minis nerd, it's cool to
love
see
your
it, but
Warhammer.
this like this is one of the best looking Warhammer games I've seen. There's been a lot of Warhammer games, and most of them are they just seem like, all right, well, how else can we get our IP out there? Because not a lot of people are familiar with it. But if this game is as good as it looks, then I think Games Workshop may have sunk its teeth into something that'll actually attract new players. Because this looked fantastic. The movement, the way the Tyranids, the alien creatures in this game looked were awesome. The scale of everything happening, like it felt spot on. And with the success of Warhammer Darktide that's been going on right now, that people are loving as
the
well. Like I
multiplayer
think
games are really working for people.
2023, the pandemic was a big boom period for Games Workshop. I think 2023 would see that raise even more. Though it seems to be only with 40k because their Warhammer Age of Sigmar doesn't even get much gaming stuff, and the Blood Bowl games aren't nearly as good as the tabletop.
Didn't they announce a Blood Bowl game?
Blood Bowl 3, but Blood Bowl 3 had been announced. There was just an extra trailer for it.
That was just a trailer for it.
Uh,
I thought about you when I saw it. I wasn't.
It's
sure.
I like Blood Bowl, the tabletop game. I tried playing the first Blood Bowl, and it had the same problem a lot of these games do, where it's like you try to adapt the tabletop game too directly, and it just doesn't translate when you're playing video games. You know what I mean? Like when everything's a dice roll and stuff like that, it's like, no, give me more real time action for that.
For sure. One thing I want to mention quickly is just the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order looked interesting.
Yes. I love they started with the back to tank in the area, but yeah, let's talk about that because that is, and I'm not going to stop hitting on major games. I'm going to talk about the ones I care about now because I realize we have so many more here. But yeah, because I loved Fallen Order, was so much fun. And this looks even better. And what is it about video game characters that once they get a beard, they get infinitely more hot? It happened to Ryu too. Like once he gave him a beard, it was like, holy shit.
It's working for it.
It's
The look
it's
is
it's
working.
working, baby. But no, that if that again, give me more of the same, and it's fine. If you add extra stuff to it, that works even better. But such a good series, and I think this is not going to be the last one we see because that looked fantastic.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Um, Tekken 8, Tekken 8 looked dope.
Looks incredible.
We talked about this before.
We
Both
talked
Tekken 8
about
and
that
Street
in
Fighter
Street Fighter.
6 both look fantastic. Both those look like they're adding a lot new features and aspects to it that only make them more interesting. Street Fighter 6 is going to be great. I'm excited. I'm not a fighting game guy, but I'll definitely pick both up.
Yeah.
It was nice to be reminded that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League still exists.
People are excited. I mean, people have been waiting for Rocksteady to come out with another game, so it'd be nice
and
if
it's
they
been
could
taking them
show
their
any
sweet fucking
gameplay.
time. This game was announced so long ago.
Right. And they had no gameplay to show. They did the nice little tribute to Kevin Conroy, which is appreciated. But
Right.
again, I don't know. Hopefully, it's going to pop up early in the year as with some more substance to it. But we'll see.
Right. High hopes for Diablo 4?
I'm so conflicted about anything Blizzard related these days.
Oh God, 100%.
And I say that as someone who loves, especially Diablo 2, and still somewhat guiltily when it went on sale last year bought it on my Switch. And I'm sorry to everyone who feels like that was still not acceptable. But I do love that game, and I am, yeah, I'm interested because it's hitting that like nostalgia bone for me. But like
Yeah.
I also just I don't know. I'll see how I feel around with the time that comes out, and also if I have like the time on my hands to play that type of like loot grind game again.
I just gotta see what the gameplay is like because Diablo 2 gameplay was great. Diablo 3, I just got bored.
I bounced off it too.
Yeah, it became too easy and like mindless and like
Diablo.
I don't trust
Diablo
Activision
3 was
Blizzard.
felt almost too much like Gauntlet as opposed to a Diablo game.
Yeah,
That and
100%.
that just I can have fun playing Gauntlet with friends, but it's not a game that holds up well to like hours and hours of single player action.
Right. Um, Death Stranding 2 announced.
I don't even sure they showed a bunch of images. It's similar to anything you saw about Death Stranding 1 before that game came out.
I mean, it's similar to anything Kojima does, in which it makes no fucking sense. And even after the game's release, it still isn't quite clear. Like the man is, I don't know. I worry that one day we'll be singing his praises, then he'll fall into the Elon Musk easy trap of like, oh shit, we've called this guy a genius one too many times. It turns out he's just a fucking lunatic. Hope that's not the case because his games are still too good right now.
Yeah, we'll see. That seems to be happening for a lot of people, but fingers crossed that doesn't happen for him. And yeah, I have no interest in a game like Death Stranding, but again, if people were intrigued by that first one, and it's cool that he gets to make another, they seem insane, but it's cool that it exists. That's kind of my take on it right now.
One game, and this is the last one I think I have on here, that I'm sure you are interested in, would be Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon.
Yes, so From Software made me eat my words because my only prediction for the Game Awards is they were going to announce Elden Ring DLC, and they did not do that. And so instead,
he actively said he has more interesting games and worlds coming to us that aren't Elden Ring. Literally, it is acceptance speech for Elden Ring.
I'm also fine with more new games. It doesn't have to be more Elden Ring. But yeah, I mean, people have been clamoring for new Armored Core for a while, especially people who are fans of that series, who I think are maybe a little resentful that From Software kind of became a Souls factory for a minute there. It's interesting to me because Sekiro originally began life as a Tenchu game, and then they kind of made it its own thing. But like it's clear they have interest in revisiting their old franchises, especially now that they have all the prestige and money in the world to play with and are a top tier studio. So I'm cool with them revisiting Armored Core. I'll be very curious to see when they can get gameplay out for it. how the game looks like it plays, whether it's going to be kind of more Armored Core like, or whether it's going to be Armored Core filtered through a Souls like gameplay loop.
What were the original Armored Core games like? I feel like I've never like they're games I know the name, but I feel like I never actually see them.
I actually haven't played them that much, but my understanding is that and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there, but my understanding is that they were a little kind of in between, like kind of arcadey and sim like in terms of like mech
Like a
control.
mech shooter, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how they're gonna change it for this one. And again, if they're going to impose some sort of Souls-like sensibility on it,
Right.
Since they still want to sell it to people who like those games. But I'm intrigued. We'll
I'll
see.
be honest, I got excited because I was really hoping it was an ad for Front Mission, because I know we're getting our Front Mission remake, and I wouldn't have minded.
That ad looked too high budget to be a Front Mission ad.
Yeah.
It's cool that they're doing the Front Mission remakes, but they are clearly not breaking the bank on them.
Right. I mean, I didn't talk about Idris Elba popping up in Cyberpunk because it's DLC. It's good that Idris Elba's getting work. Not
Sure.
the man wasn't struggling or anything. Any other like trailers or stuff before we go into just moments of the show?
I'm going back over my notes just to see what else I have.
I feel like the only ones we really missed, like the Crash Bandicoot game. You know what's not on this list that I saw, but I'm a little disappointed by? I got very excited that Joe Mad was there to introduce his game. I'm blanking on the name of it now, but he's the artistic vision, the guy behind the Darksiders games, and he had a game that was there, and it looked like another MMORPG, and I was like, "Fuck this! No, give me another Darksiders game. Finish your story, sir."
I don't think Darksiders 3 did that well.
It didn't,
unfortunately.
Well, I also don't think he's in charge of it anymore, right? Because he left to do Airship Syndicate, and I think that's still under THQ Nordic. So I think that's probably why. But even then, it's like I love his art style. I think his art is so good and unique. I fell in love with it when I first saw it in fucking X-Men: Age of Apocalypse when that series was new in like high school. Like great stuff. But and then of course he's done some cool things with like the League of Legends RPG. He had the Battle Chasers RPG, and now he's doing this. And like, I want to be excited for it, but I don't want to play a fucking MMORPG. I am over 35. I am not interested in interacting with people I don't know in video games.
Nope, not gonna happen.
I know. Yeah, the world is not made to be. I am a white male. The world is not made to be revolved around me.
Some people wish it was, though, including I think our friend at the end of the awards show, but. I don't know. Do we get to talk about that now?
I think so. I think we talk about moments. I think that's our last moment. Is general moments here. What stood out? What were the good moments? What were the bad moments? I'll say this, but before we get to that, I actually I had, and I was gonna if they were able to, I was gonna let you know about this. I had two friends, former guests on the most recent episode of the podcast, part of the Board and Barrel. Eric Sandburn and Dustin Hendrickson, who were at the Game Awards the other night. They were in the audience. They got to see what it was like being there firsthand. I was going to ask them to come on to give us their thought, how they viewed it from their eyes. We're not able to. However, Eric was nice enough to send me his thoughts in a quick little email. He just said, the pacing of the event was interesting. Definitely felt more like a future showcase event than an award show. I think it felt the same for us too. In the room, you couldn't hear the stage crasher over the wrap-up orchestra. That mic seemed to only be live on the stream. I personally would have liked a little more focus on behind the scenes and developers versus the celebrities and random musical performances. That's interesting to hear that like they had the kid well hidden for the audience there, so at least they didn't have to be subject to that. I think it would have been great to have some behind the scenes stuff. I agree with that for sure. I think that would make a lot of sense. Get to know the people who are accepting these things. I think the celebrities could have been picked and chose a little better. I don't think Pacino needed to be there. That was cool. That was a great moment, but like the man looked lost. Like he even halfway through, he was like, "I can't read the fucking teleprompter." It's like, no, you guys just thought it would be cool if Pacino came paid him enough, and he came and reaped the rewards. I will say the musical performances I thought were actually really great.
Yeah,
I really like those a
I
lot.
mentioned the Halsey thing before, but yeah, I was down for the performances, and again, that feels like an award show thing.
Right.
Um,
Give me
and
more Bear McCreary on the fucking hurdy-gurdy. Uh, just amazing.
mhm,
Cranking that thing like he's playing fucking Rock Band. Like
I
that
was
was
very into it.
that was awesome. I don't even know who Hoosier is, but like that was amazing.
Hosier
Uh,
was the "Take Me to Church" guy. That's where I know him from.
oh, okay, that explains it.
Hmm.
I also, and wish they did this more, loved the orchestral uh playback of all the game's themes.
Hmm.
That felt epic. If you got the video game live orchestra to come in and do that kind of shit, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. I have to say two things.
Yes.
One is, I apologize. This is technical in nature. I my computer seems to be running out of battery.
Oh no.
I have to figure. I guess it's not charging properly, so I have to figure that out. So my time on here may be limited, but so I want to get to a couple points at the end before
Let's
I have to
get to it.
drop. Um, but yeah, but I mean, kind of summing up the Game Awards is just the highlights for me were mostly the game trailers and not the award show itself, because the award show itself was such kind of an afterthought and also still feels kind of like everyone's showing up to Jeff Keighley's birthday party rather than a kind of a real award show that has people that are really buying into the concept. And I think that comes down to the guests too. I think getting like somebody like Al Pacino showed up because that's who they could get,
Yeah.
and he was a big name probably for Jeff Keighley, but like one of my notes was like, do half the audience of the Game Awards even know who Al Pacino is? Like, that's I'm sad to say that, but also like he just hasn't been a known quantity in movies for a long time.
Yeah.
Not everyone's into the classics, so like that that's all that stuff kind of culminates in it just not. It's still, in spite of how big and expensive it looks, and how much effort they're clearly putting in, it still weirdly feels low rent to some degree.
It's not well produced. It is not.
I agree.
It is well produced, like money wise, and like lavishly, but it's not
Hmm.
well produced as in a well run show.
Right.
Which is definitely you kind of see the cracks in the wall here.
Right, which is why a little young Mr. Infowars there was able to sneak on stage during the From Software acceptance speech for
Yeah,
the
and like that's I remember watching that back trying to figure out how did he get up there because he walked up with there from the beginning and just sat there and waited.
It's a look. I have a lot of problems with that whole thing, but it is a testament to, if you walk somewhere confidently enough, sometimes people just don't question it because you act like you belong there.
Yes, yes. And no one questioned why this 15-year-old white kid was amongst these Japanese older men.
I'm not saying it was the right call for security to make. I'm just like, that has to have been what it was, that they were just like, is he with them?
It
I
worked
guess
because I didn't
so.
notice. He even had his hand on the back of one of them as he was escorting them
Yeah.
up. Like it was insane. Um, but yeah, no, honestly, fuck that kid.
Yeah.
There's enough problems with. As I'll joke about him, but I won't. Looked up his name and I will never fucking say it because there's enough anti-Semitism in the world, and that kid uh, can burn in my Jewish hell
Yeah.
for all I care.
I appreciate that people like Maddie Myers from Polygon and stuff tried to like interview him. But like her, because I don't know if you read her article about it. She like followed up and actually like talked to him and was basically just like, this kid's just like a shit poster. He like doesn't care about anything.
Yes,
And
he's
so
a
like
nihilist. Like honestly,
yeah,
a lot of people in the Infowars world are at this point. I
right.
think.
He sounds like he was born out of 4chan. And so like that's just unfortunately that the type of person you're dealing with. You can't reason with that type of person. You can't talk, you can't like engage with that type of person because all they're interested in doing is shit stirring and
Yeah.
being provocative and saying harmful things that they know are going to get under people's skin. And they don't have any actual real interests of their own, and they actually will not be someone that anyone wants to spend any long amount of time with once the initial novelty wears off. And so maybe this kid will get older and realize that that was a stupid fucking way to be, but based on how communities on the internet works, I'm sure he will always have an audience.
Dancing Mike says, I do love they kind of roasted that child in the Polygon article. And like, good. Put that kid on the spit. Because, like, yeah, fuck that guy. There's enough of that shit going on in the world, and I don't have any patience for it. And honestly, ruined what was otherwise a wonderfully meh evening. And
yes, it's just it kind of really painfully exemplified to me the ultimate kind of dichotomy of what is an attempt to make gaming respectable versus kind of unfortunately who some of your audience is. And I don't know if Jeff Keighley's the guy to figure that out. I would not be the person to figure that out either. But it's a problem, and if nothing else, that young man exemplified that problem front and center for everyone to see with his antics at the end of the show. And I don't know. I don't know what you do about that.
yeah. Well, let's end on a high note because fuck anti-Semitism.
Yeah, for real.
What was your favorite moment? Not trailer, not award, moment from the show.
What was my favorite moment? That wasn't a trailer. I'm going back through my notes. What did I like the most? I think I touched on it a little bit, but honestly, the things that I liked the most were when I kind of felt like I was watching like a polished production, like the Halsey musical number for Diablo 4, like felt like
That
I
felt
was
strong.
felt like I was watching.
That was
like
short, but it felt strong.
It was short, but you know what? It didn't overstay its welcome, and it felt like I was watching something with the production value and attention of the equivalent of an Oscar contender for like best song for whatever movie it was in.
Right.
Same goes for, even though his speech was way too long, the Chris Judge, like any of that stuff related to like best performance, honestly, like again, felt like I was watching like a something closer to like a grown up show in terms of like how it was how it was put together. A real show maybe would have cut him off a little more forcefully, but that was still kind of the case. And I think my biggest, and honestly the thing that I think outside of the ability to talk with you about it, I think my only would really be my only desire to sit through the Game Awards again. Otherwise, why I would just watch the highlights the next day. Why sit through the whole thing?
Yeah. It's almost like there's a joy of being one of the first to see this trailer that strong and not like.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why I always try to catch like Nintendo Directs and State of Plays and like stuff like that, is because I'm like, you know what, there's nothing quite like that charge of like seeing a trailer that really excites you and having no idea that it was a thing that was coming.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
for
I'll say
sure.
for me, to be perfectly honest, I know you said it was cringe. I still thought the fact that Animal delivered his lines about gaming better
I'm being a
than most of
curmudgeon.
the real
Like it
people
was
on stage at
honestly
any
like
given
the Animal
time,
stuff was
that
more
Animal
fun
came
than
off as a
I'm
more
giving it credit
knowledgeable
for.
gamer than any of the other random guest appearances, was an absolute highlight. Like but I mean the fact that he could like, I don't know, it was a weird little thing, but the way he brought, oh no, Dance Mike says the audio's gone. Okay, never mind. We're almost at the end here. We can't lose it now. The weird little thing of just like the fact that Animal was able to talk about Elden Ring in his very animal voice, and it still felt more believable than anyone else who came up and said
Yeah,
the words
sure.
"I love gaming." It's like it both indicative of the problem. It's like, give me more of that shtick of
For sure.
it's okay if it's scripted. Let it be scripted. Most of the Oscars are scripted. Um, when it's good and authentic and like or delivered well,
Yeah,
it can be
just give
strong.
me
I
some
felt that was a
polish
strong
and
moment.
like just
And of
bring the
course, I'm
people.
with you.
Like
The
you have
music,
the
I thought
money,
the
you have the
music was
connections, Jeff.
great, and I
Like
think
just
there are more stage show
bring in the
things
people who can really
you
make it a good
could
show and maybe
do
take a
in
step
that
back
vein as
and
well. Um,
the fact that someone else could be the host. Yes. Sorry, my computer might be on its last legs, so let me wrap it.
ah, there you go. All right, you're starting to cut. You're starting to cut a little bit, and so I think in that case, let us roll out. In case you can't. Oh, I lost you. Oh, there you are. We're gonna go ahead and close it out quick, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Dance Mike, thank you for joining. If you want to follow Tro, he is at Tro_Chelly on most of his social sites. You'll also check out his podcast, Replay Values. I'm going to swap this back to the single cam. Check out his podcast on Replay Values on iTunes or re-listen to podcasts. Of course, check me out here. I'm always here doing stuff. You can also check out at BossMonsterKaiju everywhere but Twitter and Hive, which is at BossMonsterKaiju. Also, be sure to check out the best game of all time. But the best way you can help out in any capacity is making sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, make sure